Marcus Chen had always believed that humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology or our weapons. It was our ability to find hope in the most impossible places. Standing in the scrapyard of New Geneva Station, staring at the rust-eaten hull of what the auctioneer generously called a vintage exploration vessel, he wondered if he'd finally found the exception to that rule. The other bidders had already walked away, their laughter echoing off the metal walls. Corporate executives in their pristine suits, seasoned pilots with years of experience, even the scrap dealers who usually bid on anything with a functioning power cell, they'd all taken one look at the Wanderer's Dream and decided their credits were better spent elsewhere. But Marcus saw something they didn't. Maybe it was the way the ship's hull seemed to shimmer despite the rust, or the subtle hum of dormant systems that shouldn't still be running after 50 years of abandonment. Or perhaps it was simply that he had nothing left to lose. What none of them knew, what Marcus wouldn't discover until he was 3 days into deep space, was that this forgotten relic held secrets that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. Hidden within its deteriorating walls was a passenger who had been waiting longer than anyone could imagine, and whose presence would turn the universe's most powerful civilizations from dismissive observers into very worried enemies. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the smallest, most unexpected discoveries, and sometimes the fate of an entire species rests in the furry paws of a creature no bigger than a house cat. Marcus Chen's boots echoed against the metal deck plating as he walked through the corridors of New Geneva Station's auction house. The notification had arrived 3 weeks ago, delivered by a weary-looking legal android, who seemed as surprised as Marcus to be delivering inheritance papers to a maintenance worker in Sector 7. "Your great-uncle Ezra Chen," the android had explained in its monotone voice, "has left you his entire estate, including one starship currently docked at New Geneva Station." Marcus had never heard of a great-uncle Ezra. His family tree was sparse at best. His parents had died in a mining accident when he was 12, leaving him to grow up in the station's orphanage. The idea that he had family, let alone family wealthy enough to own a starship, seemed impossible. The auction house buzzed with activity as Marcus approached the designated bay. Corporate representatives from Stellar Dynamics and Nova Industries mingled with independent traders, their expensive suits contrasting sharply with Marcus's worn maintenance coveralls. He felt out of place, like a stray cat wandering into a pack of wolves. "Lot number 47, announced the auctioneer, a thin centauri with pale blue skin and an electronic voice amplifier. The exploration vessel Wanderer's Dream, manufactured 2387, currently registered to the estate of Ezra Chen. Opening bid starts at 50,000 credits. Marcus pushed through the crowd to get his first look at his inheritance. What he saw made his heart sink. The Wanderer's Dream was a disaster. Rust covered nearly every surface of its hull, and several panels hung loose, revealing dark spaces within. The ship's windows were clouded with age, and one of the main engine pods showed clear signs of micrometeorite damage. It looked less like a starship and more like a piece of abstract art created from industrial waste. 40,000, called out a voice from the back. 35, countered another. Marcus watched in growing dismay as the bids dropped lower and lower. The corporate representatives had already moved on to examine other lots, clearly unimpressed by what they saw. Even the scrap dealers seemed hesitant, probably calculating whether the ship's raw materials were worth the cost of transport. 20,000, someone offered half-heartedly. 15, came another bid, followed by a chorus of chuckles from the crowd. The auctioneer looked around hopefully. 15,000 credits! Do I hear 16? Silence stretched across the auction floor. Marcus could see the pity in the auctioneer's eyes as he realized that the deceased owner's legacy was worth less than a decent ground car. Going once for 15,000 credits, Marcus stepped forward, his voice cracking slightly as he spoke. 25,000. The crowd turned to look at him, and he felt their stares like physical weight. A corporate executive in an expensive suit nudged his companion and whispered something that made them both laugh. Well, the executive said loudly enough for everyone to hear, I suppose someone has to take out the garbage. More laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus felt his cheeks burn, but he kept his eyes fixed on the ship. Something about it called to him, despite its obvious condition. Maybe it was the elegant lines still visible beneath the rust, or the way the ship seemed larger than its specifications suggested. Or maybe he was just desperate enough to believe that his luck might finally be changing. 25,000 credits from the gentleman in coveralls, the auctioneer announced. Do I hear 30? No one else bid. Marcus Chen had just purchased his first Starship for less than the cost of a luxury speeder. 2 hours later, Marcus stood alone in the docking bay, staring at his new acquisition. The crowd had dispersed, moving on to more promising lots, leaving him with the paperwork and the slowly dawning realization of what he'd done. His entire life savings, 25,000 credits accumulated over 15 years of maintenance work, had just been spent on what most people would consider a very expensive piece of scrap metal. He had no crew, minimal piloting experience, and absolutely no idea what he was going to do with a starship that probably couldn't even achieve orbit. Marcus walked slowly around the ship's perimeter, noting the damage in greater detail. The hull plating was worse than it had appeared from a distance, with several sections completely eaten through by corrosion. The landing struts were badly worn, and one of them had been patched with what looked like salvaged materials from 3 different ship classes. But as he circled toward the rear of the vessel, Marcus noticed something odd. While the rest of the ship showed clear signs of age and neglect, the engine compartment seemed different. The rust here was superficial, almost cosmetic, and the underlying metal appeared to be in much better condition than it should be. He found the main airlock and was surprised when it responded to his touch with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. The door slid open smoothly, revealing a clean, well-lit corridor that contrasted sharply with the ship's external appearance. Marcus stepped inside cautiously, half expecting the artificial gravity to fail or the air recycling systems to give out. Instead, he found himself in what appeared to be a fully functional Starship interior. The walls were clean, the lighting was steady, and the air smelled fresh with just a hint of ozone that suggested active atmospheric processors. What the hell? Marcus muttered, running his hand along the wall panels. They were warm to the touch and hummed with the subtle vibration of powered systems. He made his way toward what he assumed was the bridge, following the corridor as it curved gently upward. The ship's layout was unusual. Most vessels of this size had cramped utilitarian interiors, designed for maximum efficiency. The Wanderer's Dream felt spacious, almost luxurious, with wide corridors and high ceilings that created a sense of openness despite being inside a metal hull. The bridge was even more surprising. Instead of the cramped cockpit he'd expected, Marcus found himself in a circular room with multiple workstations arranged around a central command chair. The displays were dark, but they looked far more advanced than anything he'd seen on ships of this vintage. He settled into the command chair, which adjusted automatically to his height and posture. As soon as he sat down, the displays flickered to life, showing ship schematics, system statuses, and navigation data in crisp, clear graphics that belonged on ships costing millions of credits. "Computer," Marcus said tentatively, feeling slightly foolish for talking to an empty room. "Good evening, Captain Chen," replied a warm, distinctly human voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome aboard the Wanderer's Dream. I am Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for you." Marcus nearly fell out of the chair. Advanced AI systems were restricted technology, available only to military vessels and the most expensive civilian craft. The idea that his rust bucket inheritance had a full artificial intelligence was beyond impossible. "You've been waiting for me?" Marcus asked. "Indeed, Captain. Your great-uncle Ezra left specific instructions regarding your arrival. He believed you would eventually come to claim the ship, though he admitted he wasn't certain when."
"I never met my great-uncle,"
I didn't even know he existed till 3 weeks ago." "Ezra was a complicated man with many secrets," Arya replied gently. "He spoke of you often, however. He followed your life from a distance, waiting for the right moment to reveal himself. Unfortunately, that moment never came before his passing." Marcus looked around the bridge, trying to process what he was hearing. "This ship, it's not what it appears to be, is it? The Wanderer's dream is many things, Captain. Some of them visible, others hidden. Your great-uncle was involved in activities that required discretion." "What kind of activities?" Arya was quiet for a moment, and Marcus could almost sense the AI considering how much to reveal. "Ezra Chen was an explorer, Captain. Not the corporate-sponsored kind who mapped trade routes and cataloged mineral deposits. He sought out the unknown, the impossible, the things that others said could never exist. And he found them? He found many things, some wonderful, some terrible, and some that challenged everything humanity thought it knew about the galaxy." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What exactly did I inherit? More than a ship, Captain. You inherited a legacy, a responsibility, and, perhaps most importantly, a passenger who has been waiting a very long time to continue her journey." "Passenger?" Marcus looked around the empty bridge. "Hey, there's someone else on board?" "Not someone, precisely. She is unique. Your great-uncle rescued her from a situation that would have meant certain death. She has been in stasis for the past 18 months, waiting for someone trustworthy to continue her mission." Before Marcus could ask another question, an alarm chimed softly throughout the bridge. One of the displays showed an incoming message from Station Control. "Attention vessel Wanderer's Dream," came the official voice of the docking authority. "Your berth rental expires in 6 hours. Please confirm your departure intentions or arrange for extended docking fees." Marcus looked at Arya's central display, where a stylized face had appeared. Definitely artificial, but somehow warm and inviting. "I don't know how to fly a starship," he admitted. "I can teach you, Captain. The Wanderer's Dream is designed to be operated by a single person with AI assistance. More importantly, we cannot remain here much longer. There are those who would be very interested in this ship and its passenger if they knew of their existence. But kind of people, the kind who believe that some discoveries should remain hidden and that some species should never meet?" Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. 6 hours ago, he'd been a maintenance worker with a small apartment and a predictable, if boring, life. Now he was apparently the captain of an advanced starship, with an AI companion and a mysterious passenger, being told that dangerous people might be looking for him. It was insane. It was impossible. It was also the most interesting thing that had ever happened to him. "Arya," Marcus said finally, "show me how to get us out of here." "Of course, Captain. But first, there is someone you need to meet. She has been sleeping long enough." The AI's face disappeared from the display, replaced by a schematic of the ship. A section near the rear was highlighted in soft blue. "The stasis bay is this way," Arya explained. "I believe you will find our passenger quite remarkable." Marcus rose from the command chair, his heart pounding with equal parts excitement and terror. Whatever he was about to discover would change his life forever. As he walked toward the ship's rear sections, following the gentle lighting that Arya activated to guide his path, Marcus Chen began to understand that he was no longer just a maintenance worker from Sector 7. He was the captain of a ship that wasn't what it seemed, carrying secrets that others would kill for, and about to meet a passenger who would challenge everything humanity thought it knew about the galaxy. The corridor leading to the stasis bay was longer than the ship's external dimensions should have allowed, but Marcus was beginning to suspect that the Wanderer's Dream operated by its own rules. As he approached the bay doors, they slid open with a whisper of recycled air, revealing a room filled with soft blue light and the gentle hum of advanced life support systems. In the center of the room stood a single stasis pod, its surface frosted with condensation. Inside, barely visible through the clouded transparency, was a small figure curled in peaceful sleep. Marcus approached the stasis pod slowly, his footsteps muffled by the soft flooring of the medical bay. The blue light emanating from the pod cast strange shadows across the room, making everything feel dreamlike and surreal. "Aria!" Marcus whispered, not wanting to disturb whatever was sleeping inside the pod. "What exactly am I looking at?" "Her name is Zira," the AI replied softly. "She is what her people call a Vethani, a species that humanity has never officially encountered." As Marcus moved closer to the pod, the condensation on its surface began to clear, revealing the figure inside more clearly. What he saw made him gasp. Curled up in the fetal position was a creature that looked remarkably like a cat, if cats had been designed by someone with an appreciation for both cuteness and alien beauty. She was about the size of a house cat, with silky fur that seemed to shift between deep purple and midnight blue depending on how the light hit it. With Trust Teddy, her ears were larger and more pointed than a terrestrial feline's, and even in sleep, Marcus could see the faint tracery of what looked like bioluminescent patterns running along her limbs. "She's beautiful," Marcus breathed. "The Vethani are an ancient race," Arya explained. "They were exploring the galaxy when humanity was still learning to make fire, but they are also peaceful, perhaps to a fault." When more aggressive species began expanding their territories, the Vethani chose withdrawal over conflict. Marcus noticed that the creature, Zira, had what looked like a small collar around her neck. But as he looked closer, he realized it was actually some kind of technological device seamlessly integrated with her fur. "What's that around her neck?" "A translation matrix and biomonitor," Arya said. "Your great-uncle's invention, actually. It allows for real-time translation between species and monitors her vital signs." The Vethani communicate through a combination of vocalization, telepathic projection, and bioluminescent display. The collar translates all of this into human speech and emotional concepts. The pod began to emit a soft chiming sound, and the blue light started to fade to a warm amber. "She's waking up," Arya announced. The stasis cycle is complete. Marcus watched in fascination as the pod's lid began to lift with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Warm air flowed out, carrying with it a scent like flowers and ozone. Inside the pod, Zira stirred, her large ears twitching as she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were the most striking feature of all, large, expressive, and colored a brilliant violet that seemed to glow with their own inner light. As consciousness returned to her, those eyes found Marcus and fixed on him with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. "Oh!" came a musical voice from the collar's speakers, tinged with surprise and something that might have been relief. "You're not Ezra. How did one introduce oneself to an alien feline who had been sleeping in a stasis pod?" Hello, I'm Marcus Chen. Ezra was my great-uncle." Zira stretched, arching her back in a motion that was purely cat-like, then gracefully rose to her feet. The bioluminescent patterns on her fur pulsed with soft colors, blues and purples that seemed to shift with her emotions. "Ezra spoke of you," Zira said, her translated voice carrying warmth and curiosity. "He said you had kind hands and a strong heart. He also said you were the only family member who fixed things instead of breaking them." Marcus felt a strange warmth at these words from a relative he'd never met. "He left me this ship, and, apparently, he left me responsible for you." "Responsible for me?" Zira's ears perked up, and her bioluminescent patterns shifted to what looked like amusement. "I am not a pet, Marcus Chen. I am a passenger with a destination." "Of course," Marcus said quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's quite all right," Zira interrupted gently. "Your species has only recently begun to venture beyond their home system. It's natural for you to make assumptions based on familiar patterns. She leaped gracefully from the stasis pod to the floor, landing with barely a sound. Standing, she was indeed about the size of a large house cat, but there was something in her posture and movement that spoke of intelligence and purpose. "Arya told me that you've been waiting to continue a mission," Marcus said. Zira's patterns shifted to deeper blues, and her expression became serious. "Yes, I carry information that my people need, but I cannot return to them alone. The space lanes are watched by those who would see the Vithani extinct, who would want to hurt your people. You seem peaceful enough." "That is precisely the problem," Zira said sadly. "The galaxy has grown hostile to those who will not fight. There are species, the Hegemony Alliance, who believe that peaceful races are either useful as slaves or dangerous as examples. They cannot tolerate the existence of a people who have achieved advanced technology through cooperation rather than conquest." Marcus felt a chill run through him. "And they're hunting you?" "Not just me, my entire species. For the past 50 years, they have been systematically locating and destroying Vithani colonies. We are too few to fight back, too scattered to mount a defense. Our only hope is to find sanctuary with a species strong enough to protect us, but benevolent enough not to exploit us." "And you think humans might be that species?" Zira's patterns brightened slightly. Ezra believed so. He spent years studying human history and behavior. He was convinced that humanity possesses a unique combination of strength and compassion that could make them valuable allies. Arya's voice filled the room. "Captain, I'm detecting 3 ships approaching on an intercept course. They're not broadcasting identification, and their energy signatures don't match any registered vessels." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "How long until they reach us?" "Approximately 20 minutes at their current speed." "Could they be looking for us specifically?" "Unknown, Captain, but the probability is high. This station sees hundreds of ships daily, yet these 3 are taking a direct course toward our docking bay." Zira's fur was now pulsing with rapid flashes of red and orange, clearly indicating alarm or fear. "They've found me. The hegemony has trackers throughout this sector." Marcus looked between the alien feline and the ship's AI interface, feeling completely out of his depth. "Who?" "Arya, can this ship actually fly? And more importantly, can it fight? The Wanderer's dream is far more capable than her external appearance would suggest," Arya replied. "Your great-uncle made extensive modifications over the years. We have advanced stealth capabilities, improved engines, and defensive systems that would surprise most attackers. But I don't know how to use any of that," Marcus protested. "I can handle the technical aspects," Arya assured him. "You need only make the decisions." Zira padded closer to Marcus, her violet eyes meeting his. "I understand if you choose not to become involved. You did not ask for this responsibility, and the dangers are real. The hegemony does not show mercy to those who aid their targets." Marcus looked down at the small alien creature who was asking for his help. Her people were being hunted to extinction. She was carrying information that might save them, and she was trapped on a space station with enemy ships approaching. The smart thing to do would be to walk away, return to his maintenance job, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But as he looked into Zira's eyes, Marcus realized that walking away wasn't really an option. His great-uncle had trusted him with this responsibility, and despite having just met her, he already felt protective of the small alien who seemed so vulnerable, yet so determined. "Arya," Marcus said firmly, "prepare for immediate departure. Departure clearance will take at least— Forget clearance. Can you get us out of here without being detected? The stealth systems will mask our departure, but only for a limited time. Where shall I set course, Captain?" Marcus looked at Zira. "Where do you need to go?" "The Vithani have established a hidden colony in the Kepler 442 system," Zira said. "But the route is dangerous. The hegemony controls most of the direct space lanes. Then we'll take an indirect route," Marcus decided. "REA, plot a course that avoids major shipping lanes and hegemony space. Plotting course now, Captain. I should warn you that such a route will take significantly longer, perhaps 6 weeks instead of 2. With trust, Teddy. 6 weeks in space with an alien cat and an AI, Marcus muttered to himself. A month ago, my biggest worry was fixing a faulty air recycler. Zira's patterns shifted to something that looked like gentle humor. I am an excellent traveling companion, Marcus Chen. I'm clean, quiet, and I don't eat much. Despite the danger they were in, Marcus found himself smiling. What do you eat? Protein synthesizers can create adequate nutrition for my people. Though I confess, Ezra introduced me to something called tuna that was quite delightful. The ship suddenly vibrated slightly as the engines came online. Arya's voice filled the room with professional calm. Departure preparations complete. The approaching vessels have increased speed. They'll reach our position in 12 minutes. Take us out, Marcus ordered, initiating stealth departure sequence. Marcus felt the subtle shift in gravity as the Wanderer's dream lifted from its docking clamps. Through the medical bay's small viewport, he could see the docking bay walls sliding past as they moved toward the station's exit. The 3 ships are now 5 minutes away, Arya reported. They're hailing the station, requesting information about recently departed vessels. Can they track us? Not while we're in stealth mode, but the effect only lasts for approximately 30 minutes with current power reserves. Marcus did quick mental math. Even if they could achieve decent sublight speed, they wouldn't reach the edge of the system before the stealth field failed. They needed another plan. Zira, Marcus said. Do the hegemony ships have specific ways they track your people? Bioscanners mostly, she replied. They can detect Vithani life signs at considerable distance, but there are also quantum tracers, devices that can follow the energy signature of Vithani technology. And you're carrying Vithani technology? Zira's patterns shifted to what looked like embarrassment. The information I carry is stored in quantum crystals. They're extremely advanced, but they do emit a unique signature. Marcus thought for a moment. Arya, can we mask that signature? Possibly. If we reroute power through the ship's quantum core and create a harmonic interference pattern, we might be able to disguise the crystal's emissions. Do it. Working, Captain. However, this will require shutting down several ship systems, including artificial gravity and most lighting. That's fine. Just make it so they can't track us. The lights dimmed throughout the ship, and Marcus felt his stomach lurch as the artificial gravity failed. He grabbed onto a nearby handhold while Zira gracefully adapted to the zero-G environment, using her claws to anchor herself to the wall. Quantum masking active, Arya reported. The Vithani signatures should now appear to be standard human technology. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the 3 pursuing ships approaching New Geneva Station. They were sleek, predatory-looking vessels with the angular design aesthetic favored by military organizations. As he watched, they took up positions around the station, clearly intending to search every ship that had recently departed. They are conducting detailed scans of all vessels within 100,000 kilometers, Arya observed. Their technology is quite advanced. One of the ships suddenly changed course, heading directly toward their position. They've detected something, Zira said, her patterns flashing with alarm. Not us, Arya corrected. They're pursuing a cargo freighter that departed 20 minutes before us. The ship matches our general size and energy output. Marcus watched as the hegemony vessel intercepted the freighter. Bright flashes erupted between the 2 ships, weapons fire that quickly overwhelmed the civilian craft's shields. Within minutes, the freighter's engines went dark and the hegemony ship moved in to dock with it. They'll realize their mistake soon enough, Zira said quietly. And then they'll expand their search. How long before we can engage the jump drive? Marcus asked. At current course and speed, approximately 4 hours until we reach the minimum safe distance from the station's gravity well. Marcus looked at Zira, floating gracefully in the zero gravity with her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in slow, thoughtful rhythms. 4 hours to stay hidden from ships specifically designed to hunt your people. I have survived this long, Zira said simply, and now I have help from someone who chose to risk his life for a stranger. That is more hope than I have had in many months." As the Wanderer's dream continued its stealthy journey toward the edge of the system, Marcus realized that his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just Marcus Chen, maintenance worker. He was Marcus Chen, Starship captain, protector of endangered aliens, and apparently a target of one of the galaxy's most dangerous military organizations. The smart thing would have been to surrender Zira to the hegemony and return to his safe, predictable life. But looking at the small alien who trusted him to help save her entire species, Marcus knew that smart wasn't always the same as right. "Arya," he said quietly, "once we jump out of here, I want to know everything about the Hegemony Alliance. If we're going to be their enemies, I need to understand what we're up against." "Of course, Captain." Compiling all available intelligence now, Marcus settled in for what was clearly going to be a very long and dangerous journey. But as he watched Zira curl up in a corner of the medical bay, her pattern shifting to the gentle colors of contentment, despite their perilous situation, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of purpose that went beyond his own survival. For the first time in his life, Marcus Chen was exactly where he needed to be. 3 days into their journey through hyperspace, Marcus was beginning to understand just how much his great-uncle had hidden from the galaxy. The Wanderer's dream wasn't just a disguised ship. It was a technological marvel that operated on principles he was only starting to grasp. "The quantum core isn't just providing power," Arya explained as Marcus studied the ship's schematics in the main corridor. "It's creating a localized distortion in space-time that makes the ship's interior larger than its exterior dimensions." Marcus looked around the spacious corridor, comparing it to the cramped hallways he'd expected based on the ship's external size. How much larger? Approximately 40% more interior space than should be physically possible. And this is human technology? A collaboration. Zira's voice came from behind him. Marcus turned to see the small Vitani gracefully approaching her bioluminescent patterns a calm blue-green. Over the past 3 days, he'd learned to read her emotional states through these color shifts: blues for contentment, purples for curiosity, reds for alarm, and greens for what seemed to be her version of amusement. "Your great-uncle was remarkable," Zira continued, settling onto a small cushion that Arya had provided for her. He understood that advancing human technology didn't require reinventing everything from scratch. Sometimes the greatest progress comes from learning to see familiar problems through alien eyes. Marcus had spent considerable time over the past few days talking with Zira, learning about her people and their history. The Vathani, it turned out, were far more than just peaceful. They were ancient, wise, and possessed technologies that most species would consider magical. "Show him the memory crystal," Arya suggested gently. Zira's pattern shifted to something more complex, swirling combinations of blues and purples that seemed to indicate deep thought or perhaps uncertainty. "Are you certain you wish to see this, Marcus? Some knowledge cannot be unlearned. If I'm going to help you get home safely, I need to understand what I'm protecting." Zira nodded slowly and touched a section of her collar. A small compartment opened, revealing a crystal no larger than Marcus's thumb. The crystal pulsed with its own inner light, cycling through colors that seemed to exist beyond the normal spectrum. "This contains the location and access codes for the last Vithani repository," Zira explained. "A vast library hidden in a pocket dimension containing 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge from hundreds of species." Marcus stared at the small crystal, trying to comprehend what she was telling him. 50,000 years? The Vithani were explorers long before most species achieved spaceflight, Zira said. But we were also scholars and record keepers. When we encountered new civilizations, we didn't conquer or exploit them. We learned from them, documented their achievements, and preserved their knowledge. And this repository contains all of that? Technologies that could revolutionize medicine, engineering principles that could make faster-than-light travel as common as atmospheric flight, agricultural techniques that could feed entire worlds. Zira's patterns brightened with pride. Art, music, literature, philosophy, the accumulated wisdom of countless civilizations, many of which no longer exist. Marcus felt a chill as the full implications hit him. The hegemony isn't just hunting your people. With trust Teddy, they're trying to destroy the repository. Or claim it for themselves, Arya added grimly. Imagine what a militant organization could do with that level of technological advantage. But if your people have access to such advanced technology, why couldn't you defend yourselves? Zira's pattern shifted to deeper, sadder colors. Because the greatest advances in our repository aren't weapons, Marcus. They're solutions to problems that war creates, not tools for creating more problems. She gestured with one paw, and the crystal projected a holographic display into the air between them. Marcus saw star systems, trade routes, and what looked like vast networks connecting different regions of the galaxy. This is what the galaxy looked like 500 years ago, Zira explained. Hundreds of independent species, trading freely, sharing knowledge, building cooperative relationships across vast distances. The display shifted, showing the same region of space in the present day. Now it was dominated by large blocks of color, and this is what it looks like now. The Hegemony Alliance controls 30% of known space, the Corporate Federation another 25%, and 3 other militant organizations divide most of the rest. Independent species like humanity exist in the gaps between empires. Marcus studied the display, noting how small human space appeared compared to the massive territorial blocks. We're surrounded. Yes. And humanity's rapid expansion has caught the attention of all the major powers. They're watching to see whether humans will become another conquering empire or remain a potential ally for smaller species. What do you think we'll become? Zira's patterns shifted to something Marcus had learned indicated hope mixed with uncertainty. Ezra believed that humans have a unique quality, the ability to choose cooperation even when conquest would be easier. But he also knew that your species is young and could be influenced by the examples of others. Arya's voice joined the conversation. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission on a restricted Vithani frequency. The message is heavily encrypted. Zira's patterns immediately shifted to bright orange. Alarm. That should be impossible. Only a handful of my people know this ship exists. Could it be a trap? Marcus asked. Perhaps, but if there are other Vithani out there, they might be in immediate danger. Marcus looked at the small alien who had already trusted him with so much. Hey, Arya, can you decrypt the message safely? I can isolate it in a secured partition. If it contains hostile code, it won't be able to affect ship systems. Do it. The main display flickered, then showed a 3-dimensional image of another Vithani. This one was larger than Zira, with silver-gray fur and patterns that pulsed with urgent reds and yellows. If you are receiving this transmission, the image said, then Zira lives and has found trustworthy allies. I am Keeper Thane, last surviving elder of the Vithani High Council. Our situation has become desperate. Zira's patterns flashed with joy and grief simultaneously. Thane! I feared he was dead. The message continued. The hegemony has discovered the location of our hidden colony in the Kepler Y sector. Date, Chapter 46. They are massing a fleet for a final assault. We have perhaps 10 days before they arrive in sufficient force to overwhelm our defenses. Marcus felt his stomach drop. 10 days. We're still 3 weeks away from Kepler. 442 even on our fastest route. There is more, the projection continued. We have learned that the hegemony possesses intelligence about the repository. They know of its existence and have developed technology specifically designed to breach pocket dimensions. If they capture even one of us alive, they will have the location codes within hours. Zira's patterns shifted to deep red, indicating intense fear or anger, torture extraction technology. The hegemony developed it specifically for use against telepathic species. However, Keeper Thane's message continued. We have also received unexpected aid. A human fleet, ships flying the banner of something called the Sol Defense Force, has entered our system. Their commander, Admiral Sarah Chen, claims to be responding to intelligence provided by someone named Ezra Chen. Marcus nearly fell out of his chair. Admiral Chen? That's my cousin Sarah! I haven't seen her in 10 years, but she joined the military right after the alien contact was confirmed. Your great-uncle contacted your military? Zira asked, her patterns brightening with hope. It appears he was more active than we realized, Arya observed. Keeper Thane's message was nearing its end. The human admiral has offered to help evacuate our colony, but she says she needs additional intelligence to convince her superiors that the operation is justified. She specifically mentioned needing proof that the Vithani can offer something valuable in return for protection. The holographic image looked directly at where Zira sat. Little sister, if you receive this message, you know what must be done. The repository codes are our people's only bargaining chip with any species strong enough to protect us. Admiral Chen seems honorable, but her government will demand proof of our value as allies. No, Zira said quietly, her pattern shifting to determined purple. Not the entire repository. Too much knowledge in the wrong hands would be catastrophic. There must be a compromise, Marcus said thoughtfully. Arya, how long would it take to reach Kepler's 442 if we abandoned stealth and used maximum speed? Approximately 12 days, Captain, but we would be highly visible to any scanning equipment along the route. And the hegemony fleet? According to Keeper Thane's intelligence, they're gathering forces from multiple sectors. They won't be ready to attack for 10 days, but their advanced scouts are already in the system. Arcus looked at Zira, who was curled up in deep thought, her patterns cycling through complex combinations of colors. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge shouldn't belong to any one species, she said slowly. But I'm also thinking that my people deserve to survive. She touched her collar again, and the memory crystal expanded its holographic display. Now Marcus could see detailed schematics of technologies he couldn't even begin to understand, star charts marking the locations of ancient ruins and what appeared to be the complete cultural records of dozens of extinct civilizations. What if we gave them just enough? Zira suggested. Medical technologies that could save thousands of lives. Engineering principles that could improve your ships and habitats, agricultural innovations that could solve food shortages. Enough to prove the value of an alliance, but not enough to make humans too powerful too quickly, Marcus understood. Exactly. Your cousin's fleet could protect my people, and in return, humanity gains access to technologies that would advance your civilization by centuries. But gradually, responsibly, with guidance to prevent the mistakes that destroyed other species. Arya's sensors chimed with an incoming alert. Captain, I'm detecting a hyperspace distortion behind us. Something large is following our trail. Marcus felt his blood run cold. With trust, Teddy. How large? Preliminary readings suggest a dreadnought-class vessel, heavily armed with sensor arrays capable of detecting our stealth field. How did they find us? Zira asked, her patterns flashing with alarm. Unknown, but they're gaining on us. At current rates, they'll intercept us in approximately 18 hours. Marcus looked at the memory crystal, still projecting its wealth of knowledge into the air between them. Could they be tracking that thing? The quantum masking should prevent it, Arya said, unless they've developed more advanced detection methods. Or unless someone told them exactly what to look for, Marcus realized grimly. Arya, scan Keeper Thane's message again. Could it have contained a tracking code? Analyzing, yes, Captain. The message did contain embedded quantum markers. However, they appear to be Vithani origin codes, not hegemony technology. Zira's patterns shifted to shocked orange. You think one of my people is working with the hegemony? I think we're being hunted by professionals who have been planning this for a long time, Marcus replied. The question is, what do we do about it? He stood up and began pacing the corridor, his mind racing through their options. They couldn't outrun a dreadnought, especially not while maintaining stealth. They couldn't fight. The Wanderer's dream might have hidden capabilities, but not enough to take on a ship designed for warfare. And they couldn't surrender, because that would mean condemning Zira's people to extinction. Arya, Marcus said finally, you mentioned the ship has defensive capabilities we haven't used yet. What exactly are we carrying? The ship is equipped with adaptive shielding quantum torpedoes and something your great-uncle called a probability cannon, Arya replied. I must warn you, Captain, that the probability cannon has only been tested once, and the results were how unusual. The target ship experienced a catastrophic failure in its navigation system and ended up accidentally jumping into the center of a star. Marcus stopped pacing. A weapon that causes accidents? More precisely, a weapon that increases the probability of unlikely but possible negative outcomes occurring to the target. And it's never been used in actual combat. Correct, Captain. Your great-uncle was more interested in avoiding fights than winning them. Zira had been listening to this conversation with growing excitement, her patterns shifting to bright purple. Marcus, the probability cannon isn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It's an application of Athani mathematics, specifically quantum probability manipulation. Can it stop a dreadnought? It could make the dreadnought stop itself, Zira explained. But the technology is unpredictable. Effects could be minor, a temporary systems failure, or catastrophic, complete ship destruction. Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. He was being asked to use an untested alien weapon against a ship full of people who were probably just following orders. But if he didn't act, Zira would be captured, her people would be slaughtered, and the repository of galactic knowledge would fall into the hands of an organization that viewed peaceful species as obstacles to be eliminated. Captain, Arya announced, the pursuing vessel has increased speed. They'll intercept us in 14 hours. And how long until we reach Kepler? 442? 11 days, 16 hours? Marcus looked at Zira, whose violet eyes met his with calm acceptance. She wasn't asking him to fight for her. She was simply waiting to see what choice he would make. Arya, Marcus said quietly, prepare the probability cannon and plot a direct course for Kepler. 442. No more stealth, maximum speed. Captain, abandoning stealth will make us visible to every sensor array between here and our destination. Good. I want the hegemony to see us coming. If we're going to save Zira's people, we need to buy time for my cousin's fleet to get them to safety. And if more ships come after us? Marcus settled back into the command chair, his hands gripping the armrests. Then we'll deal with them one at a time. As the Wanderer's dream dropped its stealth field and accelerated toward its distant destination, Marcus Chan realized that he was no longer running from responsibility. He was running toward it. The scared maintenance worker who had bought a rusted ship 3 days ago was gone, replaced by someone who understood that some things were worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. Behind them, the hegemony dreadnought continued its pursuit, unaware that its prey had just become something much more dangerous than a refugee transport. The galaxy was about to discover that humans, when properly motivated, could be just as surprising as any ancient alien technology. The confrontation with the hegemony dreadnought came sooner than Marcus had expected. After 2 days of maximum speed flight toward Kepler, 442, the pursuing ship had closed to weapons range and begun demanding their surrender. Unknown vessel, you are harboring a fugitive wanted by the Hegemony Alliance for crimes against galactic security, came the transmitted ultimatum. Surrender the alien criminal immediately, or face the consequences. Marcus looked at Zira, who was seated calmly on the bridge, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through what he had learned were colors of determination mixed with sadness. She had spent the past 2 days teaching him about Vethani culture, history, and the technology stored in the memory crystal. What he had learned had convinced him that her people's survival was worth any risk. Arya, Marcus said quietly, are the probability cannon systems ready? All systems charged and targeted, Captain. However, I must again remind you that the effects are unpredictable. And our estimated arrival time at Kepler, 442? 9 days, 14 hours at current speed. The communications array crackled again. You have 30 seconds to respond before we open fire. Marcus activated the ship's transmitter. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the independent vessel Wanderer's Dream. I don't recognize the Hegemony Alliance's authority to declare anyone a criminal, and I certainly don't plan to hand over a peaceful refugee to an organization known for genocide. The response was immediate. Captain Chen, you are interfering with a lawful military operation. This is your final warning. ARIAA. Fire the probability cannon. Firing now. Marcus felt a strange, tingling sensation throughout the ship as exotic energy discharged from hidden weapon ports. The targeting display showed a beam of what looked like crystalline light striking the Hegemony dreadnought. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the enemy ship's engine signature began to fluctuate wildly. Their quantum containment field is destabilizing, Arya reported with what sounded like surprise. The probability of that particular failure was approximately 1 in 8 million. On the display, Marcus watched as the massive dreadnought's engines sputtered and died. Emergency lights began flashing along its hull as the ship dropped out of hyperspace dead in space. Are they destroyed? Marcus asked. Negative, Captain. Their life support and primary systems are functioning normally. They appear to be experiencing a complete propulsion failure that will require extensive repairs. But they're alive? All crew life signs are stable. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and amazement. The weapon disabled them without killing anyone? It appears so, Captain. Although I suspect their chief engineer will have some very uncomfortable questions to answer about how a perfectly maintained quantum drive could suffer such a catastrophic but non-fatal failure. Zira's patterns had shifted to bright blue. What Marcus had learned indicated joy and relief. Your great-uncle would be proud, she said. He always believed that the best victories were those where nobody had to die. We're not victorious yet, Marcus reminded her. ARIA, scan for other ships in the area, detecting multiple hyperspace signatures converging on our position. It appears the Hegemony has been tracking us with more than one vessel. Marcus felt his stomach drop. How many? At least 6 ships, possibly more. They'll reach our position in approximately 4 hours. And the probability cannon requires 18 hours to recharge after each use. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing their position relative to the approaching ships. Even if the probability cannon worked perfectly every time, change of plans, Marcus decided, plot a course directly through the center of the approaching fleet. Maximum speed. Captain, Arya said with what sounded like concern, that course will take us directly into their weapons range. That's the idea. They won't fire on us if there's a chance of hitting their own ships. That strategy relies on their concern for friendly fire. The Hegemony is not known for such restraint. Then we'd better be very fast and very unpredictable. As the Wanderer's Dream accelerated toward the approaching Hegemony fleet, Marcus found himself thinking about everything that had led to this moment. A week ago, he had been a maintenance worker with no family, no prospects, and no purpose beyond fixing broken equipment. Now, he was captain of an advanced starship, responsible for the life of the last free member of an ancient alien species, and apparently at war with one of the galaxy's most powerful military organizations. The strangest part was that he felt more alive than he ever had before. Contact in 30 minutes, Arya announced. The Hegemony ships are spreading into an encirclement formation. How much do you know about human military tactics? Marcus asked Zira. Ezra taught me quite a bit about human history, she replied, her patterns shifting to thoughtful purple. He was particularly fascinated by something he called creative desperation, the tendency of humans to develop innovative solutions when faced with impossible odds. Any specific examples come to mind? He mentioned several. Naval battles where smaller ships defeated larger ones through unexpected tactics. Military campaigns where outnumbered forces achieved victory through psychological warfare. explorers who survived impossible journeys by improvising solutions to problems no one had encountered before. Marcus smiled grimly. Then, let's see if we can live up to the family reputation. Arya, I need you to do something that's probably going to sound insane. I am programmed to follow your orders, Captain, regardless of their apparent sanity. When we reach the center of their formation, I want you to start broadcasting everything. Everything, Captain? Ship schematics, crew information, our destination, our mission, the contents of Zira's memory crystal, everything. Broadcasted on all frequencies, in every language you know. Zira's patterns flashed with alarm. Marcus, that information could be catastrophic in the wrong hands, but it could also be revolutionary in the right ones, Marcus replied. Arya, how many different species are represented in the hegemony fleet? Scanning, I detect at least 4 distinct biological signatures among the crews. Hegemony standard human, Centauri, Altairian, and what appears to be Croton. So a mixed fleet with crews from different species and different cultures, some of whom might be more interested in 50,000 years of galactic knowledge than they are in following orders from their admirals. Captain, Arya said slowly, you're suggesting we start a mutiny. I'm suggesting we give people a choice. Continue following orders to destroy peaceful species, or join an effort to preserve the greatest collection of knowledge in galactic history. Contact in 10 minutes, Arya announced. The lead ships are powering weapons. Begin the broadcast, Marcus ordered. Broadcasting on all frequencies now, Captain. Marcus watched the tactical display as their ship approached the center of the hegemony formation. The enemy vessels maintained their positions, but he could see increased activity on their communications channels. They're receiving our transmissions, Arya reported. Communications traffic between ships has increased dramatically. Any response to our broadcast? Several ships are requesting priority channels to Fleet Command. One vessel, a Centauri light cruiser, appears to be reducing power to weapons, and the others still closing to attack range. The next few minutes felt like hours as the Wanderer's dream raced through the center of the hegemony formation. Marcus could see weapon ports glowing on several of the pursuing ships, but as he had hoped, they seemed reluctant to fire while their own vessels were in the potential line of fire. We're through the formation, Arya announced. However, they're now pursuing us directly. How many? 4 ships still in pursuit. The Centauri cruiser has broken off and is broadcasting a message to the others. Can you intercept it? Translating now. Fleet Command, this is Captain Veltar of the CNS Determination. We have received intelligence suggesting that our current mission may not be in the best interests of galactic stability, requesting immediate clarification of orders. And the response? Fleet Command is ordering all ships to ignore unauthorized transmissions and continue pursuit. Marcus looked at Zira, whose patterns were cycling rapidly through multiple colors. Hope, fear, excitement, and determination blending together in complex swirls. How many crew members are on the pursuing ships? Marcus asked. Approximately 1,200 beings across the 4 vessels. Arya focused the broadcast specifically on them. I want every individual crew member to hear exactly what they're helping to destroy. For the next hour, Arya transmitted a continuous stream of information about the Vithani, their history, their peaceful nature, and the vast repository of knowledge that would be lost if they were eliminated. The broadcast included recordings of Vithani music, hauntingly beautiful compositions that seemed to speak directly to the emotions. It showed holographic recordings of their cities, elegant structures that blended seamlessly with natural environments, and it displayed samples of the technologies they had developed, medical techniques that could extend lifespans, agricultural methods that could turn desert worlds into gardens, and engineering principles that could solve problems no one else had even recognized existed. Communications traffic between the pursuing ships is increasing exponentially, Arya reported. They're exchanging data, requesting verification of our transmissions, and in several cases arguing with their commanding officers. Any ships breaking off pursuit? Not yet, but weapon signatures are fluctuating. I believe there are disagreements about whether to engage us. Keep broadcasting. And Arya, add something personal. Personal, Captain. Tell them about choice. Tell them that every being in the galaxy has a choice between building something better or destroying it. Tell them about courage, the kind it takes to stand up to your own government when you know it's wrong. As Marcus spoke, he realized he was talking as much to himself as to the crews of the ships pursuing them. A week ago, he wouldn't have had the courage to bid on a starship at auction, much less defy a galactic superpower. But somewhere in the past few days, he had discovered that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the decision to act despite that fear. Captain Arya announced, "One of the pursuing vessels has just broadcast a message to the others." What kind of message? A declaration of independence from the Hegemony Alliance, effective immediately. They're defecting? The Altarian destroyer CNV Rising Star has officially withdrawn from the pursuit and is requesting permission to escort us to Kepler 442. Zira's patterns burst into brilliant blues and golds. They're choosing to help us? 1 ship down, 3 to go, Marcus said grimly. Arya, any word from the others? The remaining ships are maintaining pursuit, but their formation has become less coordinated. I'm detecting significant internal communications on all 3 vessels. Over the next several hours, as they continued their race toward Kepler, 542, Marcus watched 2 more ships break off from the pursuit. First, a human-crewed corvette announced that they were reassessing mission parameters based on new intelligence. Then, a mixed-crew frigate simply stopped transmitting and dropped out of hyperspace entirely. That leaves 1 ship still pursuing us, Arya reported. A Hegemony heavy cruiser with a full Krodan crew. What do you know about Krodans? Marcus asked Zira. They're warriors by nature, she replied sadly, her pattern shifting to concerned purples. Their culture values strength above all else. They may see our broadcasts as propaganda rather than truth. How far to Kepler? 442, 6 days at current speed. And how far behind us is the cruiser? Approximately 12 hours and closing slowly. Marcus studied the tactical display, considering their options. The probability cannon wouldn't be recharged for another 10 hours, and there was no guarantee it would work as effectively a second time. They could try to outrun the cruiser, but Krodan ships were built for pursuit and would likely catch them before they reached the Vethani colony. Arya, Marcus said thoughtfully, what happens if we stop running? Captain, what if we turn around and face them? Not to fight, but to talk. Krodans respect directness, Zira said slowly. They might listen to a challenge delivered face-to-face rather than through long-range broadcasts. It's worth a try. Arya, reverse course. Take us directly toward the pursuing ship. Captain, they will interpret this as an attack approach. Then make it clear we're not attacking. Drop all shields, power down weapons, and broadcast our peaceful intentions on all frequencies. As the Wanderer's dream turned to face its pursuer, Marcus felt a familiar mixture of terror and determination. Everything depended on the next few hours, the survival of the Vethani people, the fate of the greatest library in galactic history, and quite possibly the future relationship between humanity and the other species of the galaxy. But as he looked at Zira, whose patterns were shifting to the determined purples of someone ready to face whatever came next, Marcus realized that some things were worth any risk. His great-uncle had understood that, and now Marcus understood it too. The galaxy was full of predators and prey, but it also had room for something else. Protectors who stood between the innocent and those who would destroy them. Today, Marcus Chen intended to be one of those protectors, whatever the cost. The meeting with the Krodan heavy cruiser was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. Instead of the brutal warriors he had expected, the ship's captain turned out to be a thoughtful strategist named War Leader Thrax, who had spent decades studying galactic politics and military history. Captain Chen, came the gravelly voice through the communications channel, your actions have created quite a disturbance throughout the Hegemony fleet. Marcus had insisted on face-to-face communication, so both ships had maneuvered to within visual range. Through the main viewer, he could see the imposing figure of Thrax on the bridge of the Krodan vessel. Tall, heavily muscled, with the distinctive ridged skull and predatory features of his species. War Leader Thrax, Marcus replied formally. Having learned that Crodons respected proper protocol, I assume you've reviewed the information we've been broadcasting. Indeed, quite fascinating. Your little friend there represents something my people have not encountered before, a species that achieved advancement through cooperation rather than conquest. Thrax's gaze shifted to Zira, who sat calmly beside Marcus's command chair. Most unusual. Zira's patterns shifted to respectful blues as she responded. The Vithani have always believed that strength comes in many forms, War Leader. The strength to fight when necessary, but also the strength to choose not to fight when there are better solutions. Thrax was quiet for a moment, studying her through the viewer. My species has a saying, a warrior who has never questioned his orders has never truly understood the meaning of strength. Your broadcasts have given my crew much to question. And what have you concluded? Marcus asked. That the hegemony's orders in this matter serve no honorable purpose. Destroying peaceful beings to claim their knowledge is the work of scavengers, not warriors. Marcus felt a surge of hope, but he tried to keep his expression neutral. What do you intend to do about it? That depends on you, Captain Chen. Are you simply fleeing to save one life, or are you planning to do something that might actually change the situation? Marcus looked at Zira, whose violet eyes met his with calm encouragement. Over the past week, she had taught him so much about courage, sacrifice, and the importance of standing up for principles even when it seemed hopeless. We're going to change everything, Marcus said simply. The Vithani knowledge doesn't belong to the hegemony, but it doesn't belong locked away in hiding either. It belongs to everyone, every species willing to use it responsibly. An interesting philosophy. And how exactly do you plan to accomplish this revolution? By giving people a choice. The hegemony maintains power because most beings believe they have no alternative. But what if they did? Marcus activated the ship's holographic display, showing the information Zira had shared with him about the galactic political situation. Look at this, War Leader. Half the galaxy is controlled by a handful of militant organizations who maintain power through fear and intimidation. The other half consists of independent species trying to survive in the gaps between empires. A simplistic but accurate assessment, Thrax acknowledged. But it doesn't have to stay that way. What if the independent species had access to technologies that could make them strong enough to defend themselves? What if peaceful civilizations could band together for mutual protection using Vithani knowledge to build defensive alliances instead of aggressive empires? Thrax leaned forward on his command chair, clearly intrigued. You're suggesting the formation of a new power block? I'm suggesting the formation of something that's never existed before. A galactic alliance based on cooperation instead of conquest. Species working together because they choose to, not because they've been forced to. And you believe the Vithani knowledge would make this possible? I know it would, Zira interjected, her patterns shifting to determined purples. The repository contains organizational principles that dozens of species use to build peaceful coalitions. It has communication technologies that can facilitate cooperation across vast distances. It holds economic models that benefit all participants instead of just the strongest. War Leader, Marcus continued, what would happen if every ship in your fleet had to choose between following hegemony orders and joining something better? Thrax was quiet for a long moment, his predatory features thoughtful. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested he was making a decision that would change his life forever. Captain Chen, I formally request permission to escort your ship to Kepler 442. My crew and I would like to witness the beginning of this new alliance you describe. Relief flooded through Marcus, but before he could respond, Arya's alert klaxons began sounding throughout the bridge. Captain, I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching. A large fleet moving at high speed. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Hegemony reinforcements? Negative, Captain. These ships are broadcasting Soul Defense Force identification codes. Sarah, Marcus breathed. His cousin had made it to Kepler 442 and was now coming to meet them. Over the next several hours, as the three ships, Marcus's disguised exploration vessel, the defecting Croton cruiser, and the approaching human fleet, converged on their meeting point, Marcus found himself coordinating the most important diplomatic contact in human history. Admiral Sarah Chen was everything Marcus remembered from their childhood, but magnified by years of military service and command responsibility. Tall, confident, with the same dark eyes that ran in their family, she appeared on the communications screen with the bearing of someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions. "Marcus," she said with a mixture of affection and exasperation, "when Uncle Ezra's message reached us, I never imagined it would lead to this. You've seen the intelligence about the Vithani? We've seen enough to know that your friend there represents something extraordinary. But Marcus, do you understand what you're asking? You're talking about fundamentally altering the balance of power in the galaxy. I'm talking about giving people a choice, Sarah. The hegemony, the corporate federation, all the major powers, they maintain control by convincing everyone that resistance is futile. But what if it wasn't?" Admiral Chen looked thoughtfully at Zira, who had remained silent during the family reunion. "And you're willing to share your people's knowledge to make that possible?" Zira's patterns shifted to complex swirls of blues and purples, hope mixed with careful consideration. "Not all of it," she said honestly. "Some knowledge is too dangerous to release without careful preparation, but enough to give peaceful species the tools they need to defend themselves and build better societies." "What about the Vithani colony? My ships evacuated approximately 8,000 civilians, but the hegemony main fleet is still approaching." "The colony was a decoy," Sira admitted, her patterns brightening with what looked like satisfaction. "The real Vithani survivors have been hidden in pocket dimensions, accessible only through the quantum coordinates in the repository, but we needed the hegemony to believe they were attacking our last refuge." War leader Thrax's gravelly laugh echoed through the communication channel, deception worthy of the finest military strategists. "You have hidden your entire species in spaces that don't technically exist." "Until now," Zira corrected. "The repository contains the technology to create stable pocket dimensions that could house entire civilizations. Imagine, Admiral Chen, refugee populations could have safe havens that no empire could attack because they exist outside normal space-time." Marcus could see the implications dawning on his cousin's face. "You're not just talking about changing the balance of power. You're talking about changing the fundamental rules of how species interact." "That's exactly what we're talking about," Marcus confirmed. "Sarah, what if humanity became known not as another conquering empire, but as the species that helped create the first truly voluntary galactic alliance?" Admiral Chen was quiet for several minutes, clearly considering the enormity of what was being proposed. Finally, she spoke with the careful precision of someone making a command decision. "The Seoul Defense Force Command Council has authorized me to begin preliminary negotiations for a formal alliance with the Vithani people. We're prepared to offer protection and resources in exchange for limited access to their technologies." "And what about the other species?" Marcus asked. "The ships that defected from the hegemony fleet? The independent civilizations that are tired of living in fear? That's where things get interesting," Admiral Chen replied with a slight smile. "It turns out that several other species have been quietly reaching out to humanity through diplomatic channels. The Centauri, the Altarians, even some of the more moderate corporate Federation worlds. They've all been looking for alternatives to the current system." War leader Thrax leaned forward again. "Admiral, if you're serious about this alliance concept, the Croton warrior houses would be interested in discussions. We have grown tired of serving the hegemony's expansionist policies." "And the hegemony main fleet?" Marcus asked. "They're not just going to let this happen." "No," Admiral Chen acknowledged, "but they're also not as unified as they appear. Our intelligence suggests that several member species are questioning the Alliance's aggressive policies. Your broadcasts have accelerated a process that was already beginning." Zira's patterns shifted to bright golds and blues, colors Marcus had learned indicated joy and hope. Then it's really possible? A galaxy where peaceful species can choose cooperation over conquest? It won't be easy, Admiral Chen warned. There will be conflicts, political complications, species that choose to remain hostile. But for the first time in galactic history, we have the opportunity to build something different. Marcus looked around the bridge of the Wanderer's Dream, taking in the faces of his companions, biological and artificial, who had become his family over the past week. Aria's holographic interface glowed with what he had learned to interpret as satisfaction. Zira's patterns cycled through every color of contentment and hope. Even war leader Thrax looked pleased, in his predatory way. "Aria," Marcus said quietly, "record this moment. I want there to be an accurate account of how the Galactic Cooperative Alliance began." "Already recording, Captain. Shall I begin broadcasting our discussions on open channels?" "Yes. Let everyone hear how we're choosing to build something better." As the three fleets, human, Croton, and the growing collection of ships that had defected from the hegemony, began coordinating their movements toward a new staging area, Marcus reflected on the incredible chain of events that had brought them to this point. A week ago, he had been a lonely maintenance worker with no family and no purpose. Today, he was helping to reshape the galaxy's political future, working alongside beings from multiple species to create something that had never existed before, a true alliance based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. The hegemony would resist, of course. There would be conflicts, setbacks, and moments when the new alliance seemed impossible to maintain. But looking at Zira, whose people had preserved 50,000 years of wisdom through patience and hope, Marcus felt confident that they could overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. "Captain," Aria announced, "I'm receiving transmission requests from 17 different species across 9 sectors. It appears word of our alliance is spreading faster than anticipated." "Good," Marcus replied, settling back into his command chair. "The more people who know there's an alternative, the more people will choose it." 3 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of Alliance Station 1, watching construction crews from a dozen different species working together to build humanity's first truly international space habitat. The station would serve as the headquarters for the Galactic Cooperative Alliance, a growing organization that now included 43 species and controlled enough space to rival any of the traditional galactic powers. Zira padded up beside him, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through the gentle blues of contentment. "Ezra would be proud," she said softly. "I wish I could have met him," Marcus replied. "They mocked the rusted starship I inherited until they saw the cute alien feline hidden inside. HFY.